Today, I'm exposing the 4 biggest lies in real estate that lead newbie investors to lose tens of thousands of dollars on their first rental. For each of these 4 real estate lies, I'm going to give you the lie that everyone tells you and then what's actually true. Lie number 1 is that real estate is passive income. In fact, there's no such thing as true passive income. The truth is real estate is what we call leveraged income. Let me go ahead and explain what I mean by that. Like Nick Fury in the Avengers, you don't need to have superpowers yourself. Nick Fury is the boss who assembled the Avengers. In other words, you don't need to be the actual plumber for all of your properties. You need to just be the one who hires the plumber. And that's what we call using leverage. Think of these people as your friendly guides and helpers along your journey so that you don't have to do everything all on your own. Because that's a lot of pressure. When I first got started, I had no network. I didn't know anybody in real estate, and I was wondering if I was even cut out to do real estate. I had really bad confidence issues. But then all of that changed when I met the first person that you will need on your team. And this key person walked me through step by step the real estate buying process so that I felt a lot more comfortable. And until I started believing that this was actually possible for me. So who do you need on your real estate dream team to make sure that real estate investing becomes a simple routine and system for you rather than a super stressful second job for you? Well, the first person you need on your real estate dream team is what I call the scout, also known as your realtor. Ideally, somebody who has worked with other real estate investors before so that they can show you exactly how to find a good cash flowing property. When I'm looking for my next student rental, for example, I will simply call up my realtor who already knows what I'm looking for, and then he will give me a list of properties nearby the college that meet my specifications. I will then walk through the properties with him or her physically or virtually in order to find the best deal. Now, the second person that you need on your team is the bank. I essentially have a list of 3 to 5 go-to lenders who I will call up and compare the different rates and then select the best one out of the bunch. The third person you need on your team is called the fixer, otherwise known as your handyman or contractors. I will give you a quick example of how having a team behind me literally saved me from a huge lawsuit and from going out of business. So it was in the middle of winter, there was a huge snowstorm outside, it was negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and we get a call around 2 p.m. Our furnace has died and it won't start back up. The tenants are super worried, meanwhile the inside of the house has already dropped below freezing. And the tenants say that if we don't do anything about it soon, they're going to have to call up an ambulance because they're afraid of getting frostbite. I was on vacation during this whole time and I was already envisioning having to fly back home to deal with this issue. Luckily, I already had a team in place, so I called up my house supervisor to call my go-to HVAC technician to go out there and replace the furnace. They put in a new furnace and it's up and running within 12 hours. Crisis averted. And I got to enjoy the rest of my vacation, all because I had the right team assembled ahead of time for an event just like this. That's why I say real estate is leveraged income, because I do have to do work, but it doesn't require a whole bunch of my own time because I have that team. And what's great is I still get 100% ownership over my business. The more work you put into it, the higher income you make, and there's no cap on how much you can make in real estate investing. In other words, there's no income ceiling like there might be at a W-2 job. Line number 2 is that only rich people can afford real estate. I would amend this statement to instead say, resourceful people can own real estate. Being resourceful essentially means you're taking what's available to you and making something more out of it. Now, there are 2 big techniques that you're probably not using yet that allow you to buy real estate without using money from your own pocket. The first big technique is called house hacking, where you live in one room and then you rent out the other bedrooms to housemates, and the housemates will cover your mortgage payment. I do this in Sacramento, California, where I rent out to Sacramento State students and UC Davis healthcare workers, and they cover my mortgage and my utilities. So essentially, I get to live for free. The best part about house hacking is you literally only need 3 to 3.5% down payment. And sometimes you can even get away with a 0% down payment through a government-sponsored program. For example, in California, there's a loan out there called California's Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan, which allows you to put 0% down on the property for first home buyers, where basically the government funds your entire down payment and you don't pay them back until you sell the property. Now, the second technique is called recycling your capital. This allows you to double your rental properties every 3 to 4 years without having to use money from out of your pocket. How does this work? Well, a lot of homeowners have what we call equity in a property, and it's just sitting there. And we call it dead equity when it's just sitting there. A smart homeowner will put that money to work and make that money go out there to make even more money by using something called a HELOC. Now, how does a HELOC work? Well, if your home appreciates 7% per year, that means after just 3 years, it appreciates about 21%. With a HELOC, you can pull out most of that appreciation out as cash and then use that cash to put a 20% down payment on another property or another rental without using money from out of your own pocket. So every time one of your properties goes up 20% in value, you can then take out that money to buy another property. And that's called recycling your capital. I used HELOCs on my first 3 rentals to buy properties 4, 5, and 6 to double my portfolio without using money from my own pocket. At a 7% appreciation, the math says you can literally double the number of properties you have every 3 to 4 years. Think about it this way. If I put $60,000 down on a $300,000 property, and that property goes up 20% in value, that means it went up $60,000. And so I now have $120,000, the $60K that I put in and the $60K I gained from appreciation. So I literally double where I started. Lie number 3 is that cheap houses always equal more cash flow. Now, cheap houses can have more cash flow. However, it depends highly on the condition of the property. When I bought my first property, it was an over 100-year-old house, and it had a ton of problems on it where I lost over $30,000. And it was mainly because I didn't look at 6 key items. You're going to want to make sure you check these 6 key items to avoid any unexpected costs and repairs on the property that you buy. To remember them, I use the acronym REVIEW, REVIEW. R stands for roof, E stands for electricals, V stands for ventilation, also known as your HVAC, I stands for infrastructure or foundation, E stands for excrement, which refers to your sewage lines, and then the W stands for water lines or plumbing. Again, I lost over tens of thousands of dollars when I glanced over these 6 key items, so make sure when you get the home inspection report back, you really focus on them so that you don't make the same mistake that I ended up making. Now, the 4th and final lie is that you have to somehow get lucky to be rich in real estate investing and have bought real estate at the right time. The truth is, the best time to buy real estate was 10 years ago. But even more importantly, the second best time to buy is now. Realize that real estate on average only goes up year after year. And if you stay out of it, it will just keep making other people richer while you'll get poorer relative to them. Think of it this way. Real estate has been proven to keep up with inflation. And if you buy a property and lock in a 30-year fixed loan, and let's say it's a $2,000 a month mortgage, that means you'll be paying only $2,000 a month for the whole 30-year life of that loan. The only exception to this is that escrow may go up slightly because your taxes and insurance might rise over time. Meanwhile, you can charge more and more rent every year. Over the last 20 years, rent increases has been an average of 3 to 10% depending on the city you're looking at in the United States. That's 3 to 10% per year. So maybe in the first year, you have $3,000 a month rent. But year 2, you can increase it to $3,250 per month. Eventually, after 5 to 10 years, it raises to $5,000 to $6,000 per month, while your mortgage payment stays the exact same at $2,000 a month. And that means that your cash flow skyrockets. $6,000 a month minus $2,000 a month is $4,000 a month in cash flow. That's why you need to buy a house as soon as possible. Real estate may look expensive now, but in 10 years, every house that looks expensive now, looking back, will have seemed to be super cheap or sold at a steal. Again, due to inflation, think about 10 years ago. There's no way that you could buy a house today at the same price that it was 10 years ago. And that's case in point. In conclusion, the gurus are lying to you. Real estate isn't passive. You don't need to be rich to get into real estate. Cheap houses don't necessarily mean higher cash flow and might be just a trap. And waiting for the perfect time will only make you poorer. But knowing these 4 lies is just the first step. The real wealth is built when you actually buy your first deal, of course. And if you want to see exactly how I find my best deals to double my rental portfolio every 3 years, you can click on the video right up here. I break down my entire search process step by step. Go ahead and click on that video and I'll see you in there.